Bonhoeffer, the latest film from powerhouse Christian film studio Angel Studios, is poised for a very strong opening weekend, it looks like here. Coming up, lots of sold-out shows, apparently. My youngest son, Matthew, and I had the opportunity this past week, Wednesday, to check out the film on the first day of early screenings. Shout out to my son, Matthew, by the way. He really enjoyed the film. It was he and I in the theater, along with one other person, but we just happened to luck out because all the other showings were pretty well sold out, and there was a new theater that opened up for an additional showing that we happened to get in on. So kind of opened rather late in the day, so we were lucky in being just one of three people in the theater. My full review is coming up. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Afterthoughts. Tim Risto here. If you like what I'm doing here, be sure and subscribe to this channel. Hit that bell notification button and give this video a like. It is all very much appreciated. All right, on to my review of Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer is a historical drama and thriller about German theologian and Lutheran pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who risks his faith and his life as a dissident fighting against the Nazis during World War II, and was even part of an assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler's life. Now, if you think that sounds like a potentially very action-oriented thriller, temper your expectations accordingly. The trailer doesn't really sell it that way, so I don't think this is a case of false advertising at all. This is really kind of a old-school biopic film. You know, the type of film that gives you insight into the person that it's about, world history as it unfolds around that person and their role in it, and of course the story surrounding all those elements. This is a very dialogue-heavy film. There's lots of talking in it and not necessarily a ton of action. But as my 18-year-old son Matthew very aptly put it, the words spoken here are very good. And that's true. This is a very well-written film, and the dialogue and performances are extremely good. They keep you engaged in the events unfolding and the passions of the characters involved throughout. It's really well done. The film is punctuated by moments of heightened tension, which are typically kind of brief, but are enhanced by the shots, editing, sound design, and performances. It's not exactly a slow burn thriller, but the drama does unfold over a prolonged length of time. I guess the film could have leaned into being more of that kind of drama, perhaps taken liberties with its story and characters and events, and become like a classic World War II spy caper, which is kind of what it is at times, but also not. Although I'm not extremely familiar with the true events of Bonhoeffer's life, from what I do know, the film seems to be working to stay faithful to the man and his true story. I'm sure there are dramatic licenses taken here and there, what film doesn't, but it still feels real and grounded. The fact that the moments of tension are brief and don't devolve into explosive action set pieces, which a Hollywood version of this story almost certainly would, is a testament to the strength of the filmmaker's belief in the source material. They know what they've got, and they tell the story well without falling into cheap thrills. In other words, it's a complex film for intelligent adult audiences and not a summer blockbuster popcorn flick where you turn your mind off. The film unfolds in a somewhat nonlinear fashion, jumping around the timeline of Bonhoeffer's life from 1914 to the 1930s to the 1940s, and then back and forth throughout. This can be a tough thing for a filmmaker to pull off successfully, but director Todd Komarnicki, who introduces the film at the beginning, as has become the tradition of directors of Angel Studios films, he pulls it off well, and the scenes flow back and forth very naturally. I never lost track of where we were in the film's timeline, Bonhoeffer's life, or what was going on in the story. The film runs 2 hours and 12 minutes long. I didn't feel the runtime much because I was pretty engaged in the plot, but if you're not a big fan of dialogue-heavy biopics, your mileage may vary. The film opens in 1914 at the Bonhoeffer home, with Dietrich as a young child playing hide-and-seek with his older brother. Dietrich seems to always outsmart his brother, but it's clear the two have a brotherly bond. When their mother gives Dietrich a strawberry to eat, she spontaneously suggests, once eaten, it offers the power of invisibility, giving Dietrich the advantage in their game of hide-and-seek. This actually becomes a setup that is referenced and becomes important several times throughout the film. When his brother is sent off to fight in the war, Dietrich is heartbroken. His brother leaves Dietrich his Bible, which is filled with underlined verses and notes, which Dietrich treasures throughout his life. The film then jumps to 1945, with Dietrich on board a Nazi bus filled with prisoners, him being one of them, being taken to a Nazi jail. This is the primary storyline that the film operates from, alternating between the past events and events in the present of 1945, using the plot device of Bonhoeffer detailing events of his life in his journal to flash us back and forth. We're introduced to a bunch of other characters throughout the film: Dietrich's family, seminary professors, pastors, politicians, fellow prisoners, Nazi guards, students, friends, comrades in the fight to save the church, and so on. It's a lot to keep track of, but they are all well cast and easy to keep up with who's who. Performances are all well done. Jonas Dassler as Bonhoeffer is excellent and completely believable in the part. There's a scene in his prison cell where he wrestles with God that is a standout scene, along with the closing scenes of the film. He's very good. As mentioned, Todd Komarnicki directs the film. Komarnicki was involved with films like Elf and some Tom Hanks projects. He does a good job of directing here and brings the story to life, with scenes that balance both the intricacies of moving the sometimes complicated storyline forward, while also highlighting the intensity of character interactions and political and spiritual events. The cinematography by John Matheson is very good. Matheson has shot both Gladiator films, including the current one out right now, Gladiator 2, Kingdom of Heaven from 2005, Robin Hood from 2010, all collaborators with director Ridley Scott, among many other films as well. But it's a visually great-looking film. Also, the editing is tight. The music is fitting, composed by Antonio Pinto, who also composed music for the recent Mosquito Coast TV series. It's very good. And the sound design is really very good. When a gunshot rings out at the prison where Bonhoeffer is being held, it's truly loud and dramatic, punctuating the drama of the moment in the scene. I recall being impressed by the sound design on this past summer's Sound of Hope film. I have no idea if this is the same sound designer or not, but it's equally as impressive as that film. Maybe I've just lucked out and been in theaters with really good speakers. Who knows? This film has a committee of producers listed. The one name that stands out for me the most is Ralph Winter, who I recognize as having been a producer on several of the classic Star Trek films in the 80s and 90s. He's a Christian who has been involved in several films based on Christian novels and original stories as well. Glad to see him involved with this project. The film was shot primarily in Ireland and Belgium, with principal photography wrapping up in March of 2023. Originally titled God's Spy, which I think actually sounds really cool, it was retitled to Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin, after being acquired by Angel Studios in November of 2023. Because if there's one thing that helps the marketing of a film, it's to make the title longer, right? In short, Bonhoeffer is a really good film. While it often emphasizes the political nature of the story, events, and characters, it doesn't shy away from the Christian faith. It's integral to the themes of the film and, of course, the motivations of Bonhoeffer himself. There's many modern-day parallels with the church in the film, too. It's kind of startling in some ways, but I'll leave that analysis for another video. One thing's clear. Christ's saving grace, redemption through a relationship with Jesus, and the need for salvation through Christ are clearly expressed in the film. The gospel is present here, along with all of the complications and compromises we often make as Christians, living out sinful lives in a sinful world, striving to do what God has called us to do and who He's called us to be. The ending scenes truly drive this point home, I think. And it's hard for me, with my Lutheran background, not to shed a tear at the communion scene in the finale of the film. It's a powerful statement on the true mission of the church. It's a challenge to the church as well, and a reminder of the Great Commission to preach the gospel to all nations. Any film that does that is certainly worth checking out. That's my review of Bonhoeffer. Have you seen it yet? If so, what do you think of it? Are you planning to go see it this weekend? You should definitely check it out. Love to hear your comments down below. That's all I've got for today, y'all. Do yourself a favor. Go out to the cinema. See a film. Make it Bonhoeffer. Support Christian filmmaking and Christian studios like Angel Studios. This is definitely a film worth checking out on the big screen. I think it definitely plays better on the big screen than it will on a small screen. Okay, y'all. Remember, above all else, stay in God's Word. Blessings, y'all. See you next time. Take care.